We just touched upon the topic of tonality. Let us now delve deeper into the techniques that Mali brought forth into Carnatic flute playing. What makes Mali special? The fact that Mali revolutionized flute playing is something that all of us know. But how exactly and what exactly did he do to revolutionize Carnatic flute playing? So specific to flute playing, there are certain techniques that we shall be talking about. So one is the blowing technique. Blowing technique is akin to how a singer would sing. The sounding of the instrument, which is a result of the good or the bad blowing technique, is similar to the voice texture of a musician when he or she sings. It is but natural that one needs to hone their voice texture, which is natural to them. Mali was a master when it came to the kind of technique that he developed or adapted from God knows where, who he got inspired by. But his blowing technique was absolutely original, something that was not a part of flute playing technique in pre-Mali days. Today, with the availability of recordings of Vidwans such as Palladam Sanjeeva Rao and his disciple H. Ramachandra Shastri, who perhaps indicate what flute playing sounded like in Carnatic music pre-Mali era. And then listening to Mali, there's a stark contrast in the blowing technique and then the eventual sounding of the instrument in itself. Mali made a lot of changes to the flute. He basically kind of made the walls thicker, and also the holes that were manufactured in his flute were much rounder in shape in order to present a deeper resonance. One of the most striking features of Mali's blowing technique was his incredible control over his breath. He could sustain on one note for almost a minute, which is not a big virtue, but the fact that he could hold onto that note the same consistency is what really made his blowing technique supreme. Regardless of whether he presented his music in the lower octave or the middle octave or the higher octaves, the way in which he channelized his blowing into the flute in order to produce these notes with certain consistency. When I say consistency, it means the notes not quite fading. It's consistent, which you can perhaps look into, while you record someone in a studio. So his blowing was extremely consistent. His rendition of Marivera Dikevaraya Rama in the raga Shanmukha Priya, he's joined by Dwaram Mangetaya Roma on the violin and Mridangam Maestro Sri Karakudi R. Mani. Karakudi Mani sir's playing in this particular recording cannot go unnoticed. He just elevates Mali's rendition to another level. But please do listen to Mali's rendition of Marivera Dikevaraya Rama, wherein he presents this particular Pallavi in the lower octave. But then there is so much of sound, there is so much of power and presence of these notes, even in the lower octave, that you're just amazed how a man could produce so much sound out of this particular tiny looking instrument. Raga Shanmukha Priya. how can we have Mali's listening session without his rendition of Ninnu Vina and Yavarani, two compositions that belong to Mali. So here I'll be playing his rendition of these two compositions from his RPM recordings in the mid-40s. Some of the takeaways are Mali's youthful exuberance, the powerful blowing technique, and his rendition of both these compositions in the upper octaves. There are several recordings of his playing Yavarani later on in his years, but he has presented these compositions only in the lower octave. So this is perhaps a recording that most of you have not listened to, and I would like all of you to listen to this particular version of Ninnu Vina Namadendu and Yavarani in the Ragam Devamrita Varshini. As most of you would have observed, he plays the charanam of Ninnu Vina Namadendu, altering between the lower and the higher octave, one phrase after another. This was perhaps done on the flute for the very first time. And it became a customary that any flautist who played the flute or began to learn the flute would try replicating the same set of phrases as Mali would. Mali's most significant contribution to Carnatic flute music is the introduction of the Parrot clutch or the cross fingering technique. So this is a method in which he held the flute with his left hand. It would look something similar to this. As you see, this particular, the index finger, the middle finger, and the thumb look more like the Parrot clutch. So this method of holding the flute with your left hand was introduced by Mali. While there is a lot of awareness about the word Parrot clutch and this kind of a fingering technique introduced by Mali, how and what are the ways in which it exactly improved flute playing? Flautists from the past, my great-grandfather was a flautist, and my tata has told me how there used to be difficulty in playing ragas such as Todi, Varali, for example, that needed to employ the concept of half Ri or half Ga. So we all know Ri, Suddha Rishabham and Suddha Gantaram. So there is a technique in the flute called open notes and half notes. It was always a challenge to play half Ri and half Ga on the flute with your left hand with the kind of technique that flautists used in pre-Mali days, which was similar to this. It got very difficult to play half Ri and half Ga. And hence, flautists of the past would avoid playing ragas such as Varali, Todi, just to name a few. There are several such ragas. And what flautists would generally do is, have clay in the first two holes of the flute in order to play Ri and Ga clearly, and not typically use their fingers to play a half Ri or half Ga. Or even if they did this without employing the technique of Gamaka on Ri and Ga, which is not going to make Todi sound like Todi or Varali sound like Varali. So Mali's most significant contribution to Carnatic music was the Parrot clutch method or the cross-fingering method. And with this presentation of ragas such as Todi, Varali, Saveri, Ahiri, even ragas such as Bhairavi, Kamboji became very easy because there was a lot of felicity with which you could play phrases around Sa, Ri, Ga and Ma without making them sound like cut notes. It is said that flute in the 20s and 30s used to be played with harmonium as the pakavadya instrument, because the flute and the harmonium both had this challenge to overcome of playing phrases or notes with continuity. But I think because Mali, early on in his years of his performing days, was encouraged a lot by violin players such as Dwaram Venkatasamy Naidu, Sri Papa Venkatramaya, and Sri Chaudiya, perhaps he found the need to bring out a certain technique with which he could present flute music with as much continuity as the violinists could do. Mali, by introducing cross-fingering technique onto flute playing, also helped flautists post his generation refine this particular technique and employ several other voice-based exercises or phrases onto the flute playing, thus elevating flute to a solo concert platform, or perhaps elevating flute to a solo instrument per se. Let us take a close look at this particular left-hand grip on the flute in this particular concert clipping of Mali's from Krishna Gana Sabha in the year 1986. As all of you watched his beautiful fingers playing on the flute in order to produce such beautiful music with so much continuity and depth, it is interesting to note that his right hand placement on the flute was also in such a way that he could hold the flute separately in either of the hands. So it was not interdependent. And this particular technique that he employed, it gave flautists a lot of comfort in being able to transform power from the left hand to right hand or vice versa in order to play certain phrases that required more power on the right hand or more power on the left hand, thus creating a certain balance between the right and the left, which was lacking in flute playing technique back in the day. So Mali's most significant contribution to flute playing was the fingering technique that he developed, and it was perhaps way ahead of his times. Let us now listen to Mali's rendition of Raga Todi. This is one of the rarest times that you have listened to Mali present Raga Todi in the form of a Ragam Tanam Pallavi. This particular recording, it is interesting to note how he spends a lot of time around Re, Ga and Ma, which are the most difficult notes to play on the flute. But the fact that he spends so much time producing and showcasing all the different varieties of Re and Ga that Todi has is phenomenal. And this goes on to show that he was a thinking musician, and he was more of a musician than a flautist, because what he was playing was not based out of the muscle memory that comes out of a lot of practice, but then he basically played what he thought as a musician, and he tried to play a lot of Todi from what he derived from his mind, which is not something that instrumentalists do. Instrumentalists like to present what is a little more easier on the fingers, a little more comforting in terms of the muscle memory based on the kind of sadhana that they have done. But Mali's music was from here, and the fact that technique, despite mastering and creating several such techniques, took a backseat, and that he gave prominence to music. Pathantaram. Mali never had a formal guru. It is said he learned from his maternal uncle, Jalra Gopalayar, in the beginning. And as soon as Mali broke into the concert scene, he got so busy with his concert engagements that perhaps he never had the time to learn or undergo a formal training from a guru. Back in the day, Vidwans such as Dwaram Venkatasamy Naidu, Sri Chaudhaya, Sri Papa Venkatramaya used to perform alongside Mali, and also encouraged him a lot in terms of bringing in lots of concert opportunities. And in this process, Mali ended up learning a lot of kritis and compositions from these three legendary violin vidwans. He has also gone on record saying that he revered these three violin artists a lot and held them as his guru sthanam. Also, Mali never had a system wherein he would sit, teach his students formally. What the students had to do was to learn, assimilate, grasp as much as possible from listening to Mali perform in concerts. This, as a result, perhaps made Mali also the fact that he was such a genius of a musician. He would come up with a lot of improvisation within sangatis of the same kriti. So if you listen to his rendition of Manavyala Kinchira across 2 decades or 3 decades, there are certain sangatis that he would play as and when he felt like playing. So his Pathantaram, it's not like, he really stuck to a certain Pathantaram and followed sangatis one after the other per se. According to me, Mali's music was a lot more improvised. even while presentation of a kriti or during presenting a Varnam, there was a lot of Mali sangatis, Mali ideas that he would infuse here and there. Mali's music, if you observe his concerts, were 70% to 75% improvised, wherein he would present a lot of raga alap, and the main feature of the concert would be Ragam, Tanam, Pallavi, most of the times his own composition. Mali had a very peculiar way of presenting kritis and Varnams, wherein the Pallavi and the Anupallavi were typically in a slower pace, and then the Charanam was slightly faster in terms of the tempo. While this jump from the Anupallavi to Charanam and then the difference in Kala Pramanam was obvious, it was well under his control. And something that he brought to the table and showcased was his ability to stick to the Kala Pramanam consistently, regardless of what Kala Pramanam he started the Pallavi or the Charanam for that matter in. There was no ways that he would start a Pallavi in one particular Kala Pramanam and speed it up by the end of the Pallavi. So it was never a case where he lost grip of the Kala Pramanam in which he presented his music. So he was completely in control of his music. He did the same thing with Varnams as well. He never quite stuck to the sangatis that he played. So you could always find that there was a lot of Mali's way of infusing of a certain sangati, of say a rendition of Manavyala Kinchara from one concert to another. So he never really stuck to the Pathantaram of a composition that he presented. And another interesting point to note here is that wherever he found a scope to improvise with the melody in the form of changing of nadai, he did implement that, but not at the cost of eschewing the melody or bringing down the bhakti bhava. So that is one very important aspect to Mali's approach to kritis and Varnams. Also, in terms of the kritis that he presented, most of the kritis were of that of Sri Tyagaraja Swami. To his repertoire, he did have compositions of Muthuswami Dikshitar and Shyama Shastri that he presented in his concerts. But he stuck to presenting more of Tyagaraja Swami kritis, perhaps because his philosophy of life resonated with the bhakti bhava of Tyagaraja, or because he felt that Tyagaraja's compositions had a better connect with the audience. But his presentation of Tyagaraja kritis on the flute did leave an everlasting impression. Mali was a thinking musician. Most of Mali's music was from the heart and also highly intellectual. While talking about Manodharma as a subject, Mali's creation of an alap, for example, was 100% improvised, which is Manodharma. There was no preset method of starting an alap, say in the lower sa, and then developing it structure by structure, note after note. It was more on the lines of unfolding of a story. It was more as though he was trying to narrate a story. It is very important to note that no two alapanais of Mali in the same raga would be similar. Here was a thinking musician who had to be given extra space and time to create on stage. While Mali had this utmost confidence on himself and his music, and he never really bothered about whether the audience was about to leave or whether he was taking too much time, I think he became one with his music as soon as he mounted on the stage for his performance. We shall next listen to his rendition of Raga Kalyani, wherein he paints an absolutely beautiful canvas. And something to note is that Kalyani does not have the conventional Raga phrases that you hear quite often, but this is Mali and his own version of Raga Kalyani. Based on the recording that we listened to, I'm sure all of you noticed how Mali spends more time in the lower octave, which gradually became his way of presenting his music on the flute as he aged. I've heard from some of his colleagues and my grandfather that he would often say that true music happens in the Mandirasthai. Manodharmam. The next point that we shall be discussing about is his swaram playing. One important facet of Mali's music that got me hooked to his playing in concerts was definitely his Kalpana swaram playing. I think there was something very raw and natural, the way in which he played his Kalpana swarams. While there was a lot of Kalpanai, Manodharmam involved, the fact that it was also highly intellectual, with the kind of arithmetics, with the kind of kanakas that he brought into his swaram playing, set him apart as a Carnatic musician and as an instrumentalist back in the day. While Nade variations were something relegated to percussion, specifically, it was Mali who brought in this facet of Carnatic music into flute playing as well, which I think is fusion in the truest sense of the word. And he could adapt arithmetics into melody very beautifully, at the same time ensuring that the grammar of the raga is not lost. Some of his Karnaka patterns one of the first times that I listened to his rendition of Dharani Telusukontini, he comes up with a very beautiful, very small kanaka between, and he keeps transitioning between Chatushram and Tisram. Sari mari ri sa sa da sa. And then the next round is Sari mari ri sa sa da sa. So he keeps shifting between Chatushram and Tisram so beautifully. And then he would end this with a beautiful korvai, again in Chatushram and Tisram. So listening to this, here is a musician who not only brought in this concept of Tisram into Kanakas, but also was very aesthetic with the manner in which he also incorporated the same method, arithmetic and aesthetics into creating a korvai and ending the song with the korvai. So there was a lot of development of idea as he progressed through the years as a musician, as a performer, as a flautist. One more very fascinating korapa that he does is in the last concert of his, wherein he plays Swara Raga Sudha, and then he does this very interesting tiny korapa. Sa sa ri ri ga. It's just 2 beats of Tisram, but then the manner in which he transitions between Chatushram to Tisram and then transitioning into doing the entire thing in Tisram and trying to play a korvai also in Tisram, it was way ahead of his times, and nobody really knows that what kind of a music or which musician inspired him to do this. And my tata has told me several times that it was a sight to behold, the Rasikas waiting for Mali to break into swaram playing and break into this transitioning between Chatushram and Tisram. The co-artists trying their best to keep talam to this and trying best to understand what he was trying to do. And also the Rasikas would keenly observe this particular transaction happening between Mali and his students trying to keep talam and trying to live up to his expectations was truly a sight to behold. I shall next play a recording from his last concert wherein he breaks into this korvai in Tisram, and then he's trying to do this a couple of times. It doesn't really fall into talam. He turns and looks at Morsing Vidwan Pudukote Mahadevan and remarks saying it's been a long time since he played this korvai and he has forgotten. It is also interesting to see Vidwan Hari Shankar. This was the first and the last time he accompanied Mali in a concert. He understood the arithmetics behind the korvai, and in his very first round, he plays this korvai and that falls in place with Mali lavishly praising Harishankar at the end of the Taniyavartanam. Let us watch this very fascinating clip of Mali and Harishankar. Let us listen to another korvai of Mali's, wherein he transitions between Chatushram and Tisram very beautifully. And this kind of a concept where one could present a korvai between Tisram and Chatushram was very new back in the day. Let us listen to this particular recording of his. An important point to note here is that Mali's swaram playing was not always in Keel Kalam, meaning the first speed, and then breaking into Tisram or Kandanade. He has played in his younger days swarams in the second speed at lightning speed, fast brigas, and Melkala Tisram, which is basically 6 notes per beat. Takita, 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 takita. He was the first flautist to ever do this, wherein he would present 6 notes per beat. Or the Melkalam, the second speed of Chatushram, where he would come up with a briga like within the same note. So he was way ahead of his times when it came to imparting such techniques and finding relevance between techniques and imparting that into music. So here is a clipping of Mali playing some Kalpana swarams in the second speed in Raga Kapi. One of the most important parts of Mali's concerts used to be the Ragam Tanam Pallavi segment. Most of the Pallavis that Mali sir presented in his concerts were his own compositions, bearing a few exceptions, such as his rendition of the famous Bhairavi Pallavi, Govindanadi Mukundanadi. Several Pallavis of Mali that gained a lot of prominence amongst other flautists and their concerts as well. We shall next listen to perhaps one of the most popular Mali's Pallavis. This is set to Talam Mishra Jati Triputa Talam in the Ragam Begada. Sanida Pasa Nisagariga Mavada Pasa Dadabasa Dadabalisa. The first time I listened to this particular Pallavi, it took a long time for me to understand what the Talam was. And this is also Dvi Nade. This is something that I think most of us would have faced, a challenge to find out what this Talam was. But it's not just us listening to this. We shall next listen to the recording where you have T N Krishnan sir and Palakkad Maniyar on the Mridangam accompanying Mali in this concert, and where T N Krishnan also remarks saying, Enakku Thalam Puriliye. Let us listen to this fascinating excerpt of Mali presenting his Pallavi in Ragam Begada.
புரிய மாட்டேங்கிறத வேண்டாம், எல்லாம் நீங்களே வாசி முடியுங்க. வாசிங்க வாசிங்க. அவ்வளோதான் அவ்வளோதான். சரி, இன்னும் சில வாத்தியத்துக்கு சிலதுதான் பேசும். ஃப்ளூட்டுக்கு எது போய் பேசுமோ அது பிடிலுக்கு வராது, பிடில எது பேசுமோ அது அதே மாதிரி ஃப்ளூட்ல வராது.
Of course, may have a range, possibilities there which may not be here. But what is possible with violin I am playing.
But I don't think so. I can't accept that.
Whatever it is, may I accept your...
Whatever.
We shall next listen to an excerpt of Mali playing Govindanadi Mukundanadi, the popular Pallavi in the Ragam Bhairavi. Teaming up with Mali in this concert are Vidwans T N Krishnan and Palakkad Mani Iyer. You cannot help but notice Mani Iyer's absolutely godlike playing. Both Mali and Mani Iyer weave magic together, transforming this listening experience into a spiritual one. This was also perhaps the last time the popular combination of Mali and Mani Iyer performed together in the year 1970. Ragamalika. In every Mali concert, Ragamalika is one particular section where he spends so much time improvising and creating music. It is said that in one of his concerts at the Music Academy, early in his career, he played about 16 to 17 different ragas as part of this Ragamalika section after presenting the Pallavi. In this process of curating this particular listening session along with MOPA, I discovered that Mali has played some ragas in which he had never performed a kriti or a varnam in. So I would like to draw all your attention and play these ragas for you as a part of his Ragamalika improvisation. Let us start with Raga Natakurunji. I have always felt that Mali's creativity comes out best in the Ragamalika sections. The impression that is formed based on listening to his concert recordings is that he truly loses track of time, immersing himself into the raga. He is seen to be in no such hurry of ending one raga and going on to the other. I think he just lets this process be as organic as possible, exploring and creating as much original music as possible as a part of his improvisations within the Ragamalika section. Let us now listen to some of the excerpts of Mali presenting Ragamalika swarams in ragas Varali, Mand